Afternoon, we were about an hour, and that was the end of the Zoom. So I'm hoping for similar length of time tonight. So let us begin with prayer. Gracious God, as we think about the business needs of our congregations, we remember in this season of Lent that you have given us everlasting life through Christ. Help us always to love each other as you love us. Amen.
Amen.
All right. What I'd like to do is a round of introductions, and I'm going to do it by just asking you to speak. And I hope there are no two people with the same name. No. Okay. So, and just tell us who you are and your church and your position at the church.
Okay.
Martha, would you start us off?
Sure. Martha Cox, Clerk of Session, Lehighton. And with me, we have
Beth Yaroshevsky. I'm an elder.
Francis Yaroshevsky, treasurer and an elder.
And Keith Snell, trustee president.
Oh, we can't quite see that fourth person. All right.
See you.
Diane?
Hi, I'm Diane Phillips. I'm from the Catasauqua Presbyterian Church. I'm relatively new to the church. I've been there for about 7 or 8 years. Currently, I'm an elder and I chair the finance committee, but I'm also part of Christian Ed and stewardship and choir whenever that starts back up.
Oh, won't that be wonderful if we can do choir again?
Yeah.
Robert?
Robert Pickens from Christ Presbyterian Church of the Slate Belt. I'm a session member and I'm on operations.
And Richard?
I'm Dick Pritz. I'm with Covenant Insurance, work with Phil.
Oh, I didn't know that. Dick.
Hi, Dick.
First time I've seen your face. Dwayne?
Yes, Dwayne, I'm with the Christ Presbyterian Church of the Slate Belt. I'm a ruling elder. I serve on the property committee and also the worship commission.
And Mark?
Hello. Yeah, this is Mark Joe. I'm a pastor of a Korean Church of Lehigh Valley in Whitehall, Pennsylvania. Good to see you.
Pastor, good to see you.
Pastor, not elder. Yeah.
Stephen? You're muted. Yeah, Stephen not responding at the moment. Alexis? Okay. Alexis is Washington Church in Reading. And I think Stephen is also, or no, Pennside maybe. Dave.
I'm Dave, and you're correct. Alexis is with the Washington Church. I'm the pastor at Pennside Presbyterian Church in Reading, and I basically go walking through empty halls every day and get my step count up.
Okay, phone number 3991.
Hi, this is Ken Gill. I'm also with Pennside Presbyterian. I'm the treasurer.
And phone number 1100.
That must be me. It's Pete Ferguson from Shawnee Presbyterian Church. I'm treasurer and finance committee and probably a few other things that don't count.
And Nelson.
Hi, Nelson Rabenald. I'm the treasurer of the Presbytery, and I'm also a member of First Presbyterian in Allentown.
And I forgot to mention, I'm Janet Nye, and with the First Presbyterian in Allentown, and currently serving as the chair of the finance committee for the Presbytery. So what we want to do tonight is to introduce you to the renewal of the insurance, the master insurance policy. I want to say first, thank you to anyone in any of the churches who helped with the data gathering that was necessary for us as we went out to bid. We went to 3 companies representing 4 carriers, and they needed some specific information. It was not information that was being collected by Phil Swartley from Guide One. It was information collected for one of the other companies. And it was a bit of a nuisance for a lot of you to put that information together. We didn't quite have enough time, the committee or you, to get all this done, but we got it done. And we are ready to go with the renewal on April 1st. We thought it was important to do this on an occasional basis, just as a prudent measure to make sure that we're in the market, best price, best coverage. And that's what we did. And we ended up with the same company that we've been with for 20 years, but we feel that we had done a thorough search. We had some help from an insurance agency, from an unrelated company who helped us, advised us on what our policies meant and which way we should go. And so we feel good about where we are. We want to talk tonight about what's in the renewal, what's in the policy, and we want you also to be thinking about any additional coverages that you need in specific areas where you may not be fully covered and need to have more coverage. And also think about any umbrella policy or the umbrella, which includes workers' comp and other policies like that. So I'm going to turn everything over to Phil. He's going to explain everything, and then we will have time for your questions. So Phil Swartley, you're on.
Hello, everybody. I am Phil Swartley. I am one of the partners at Covenant Insurance, and I have actually been around for all 20 years of this program. We're going to kind of go through some of the features of the program tonight and some of the the coverages and those types of things. But you got to start by acknowledging Dick Pritz. His name is Richard on here, but he goes by Dick. Dick does all the work and is phenomenal. And the last meeting, we couldn't see his face because we were having some troubles connection. But most of you actually probably know Dick better than I. And, you know, I've worked with Dick for a long time, and it really is a joy to do that in my life, and I appreciate that. He has followed me to a couple different companies, and I've been very grateful for his friendship and his mentorship, actually. Also, Robin, who is too shy to put her picture up. Robin has also been here all 20 years, and I've been very grateful also for her work and for her friendship. Janet and Nelson are on the finance committee. Is that the right name? Finance. And have on it, you know, despite a lot of the difficulties of this process of trying to get a bid, because this is it's a very unique insurance product. They did a great job, and they came up with 3 really solid quotes from 3 very, very different, very separate agencies. And it is a healthy and good process, even though it's hard. And even though I don't like it, because, you know, it threatens me a little, makes me a little nervous. I was sweating a little, but I'm very happy that we're here today. So before we start with the program itself, does anybody have any questions they just want to get off their chest right off the bat? Okay. If you want, you can say at the end, there's always questions. So, you know, everybody saves them to the end. So write them down. You know, we'll go through it. It's pretty simple. But if during the presentation, if you have a question, you have to speak up, because I won't be able to see you, because I'm going to share my screen, and so that you guys can see what I see. And then we will go from there. See how we do this. Okay. Can you all see the master policy? Somebody shake their head. Say yes.
Yes.
All right, good. And is it legible? Is it big enough? Oh, that's too big. How's that? Is that okay?
Yep.
I got a thumbs up. Okay. So the program actually started in 1999. It was June of 1999. I actually met with what would have been the finance team at that point in time, and we began to build what's called a master insurance policy. Up until that point in time, every church in the presbytery bought insurance directly from the carrier, and they did it independently of all of the others. And so there were policies with as many churches as there were that many insurance companies, that many policies, that many variations. And so what we began to do was build a program where there is kind of a standard set of minimum coverages that everybody gets. We buy it together, and then there are options to buy additional coverages depending upon your church individual needs. The advantages of the program. For me, this is really the biggest advantage, and that is mutual aid. Dick and I have insured churches for a very long time. And for 90% of our churches, 70% of our churches, a large number of our churches, insurance is real easy because they've never had a claim. Their buildings are pristine, they have lots of money, and they have lots of people attending their church. For a lot of churches, insurance is really difficult. It's because they've had some kind of history of claims. They have older buildings. They have buildings that aren't where there are fire hydrants. They're more rural locations, where their budgets are tight, and finding affordable coverage is very difficult. This program brings as many churches as want to in the presbytery, and it's most of them, together to buy one policy together. So when the insurance company looks at us, they look at us as one policy. We have over $100,000 of premium for the total policy. That's divided out to each church kind of based on the value of their buildings and their exposure. But the insurance company sees us as one. And so they treat us with a little more respect because of the size. It is controlled by the Lehigh Presbytery. They are the first named insured, and they get to decide the basic coverages of the plan. Each church is invited to join. It is not a mandatory program. There are some churches out there that have mandatory master programs. This is voluntary. If your church or if any of the churches can find better insurance, or the pastor's brother is the insurance agent and it matters that it stays there, or the insurance agent is the biggest donor of the church and it has to stay there. I faced all of those things in my time. So there's lots of reasons to choose other programs. This is a great program, and everybody is invited to be a member of it. The performance of the program. Over the last 20 years, we as a presbytery have had 115 individual claims. Guide One has paid out more than $1.3 million to the presbytery on the basis of those claims. That's a lot of claims, and it's a lot of money. But no claim went uncovered. No claim went denied. The program worked. Nobody ran out of limits. Everything that we asked the insurance company to do, they have responded and done so fairly and treated us well. There have been some difficult claims. There have been some claims where there have been really difficult questions as to coverage and those types of things. Dick or I have always been involved with claims. I've walked on lots of church roofs and other things where there are questions, and tried to work on behalf of everybody. But Guide One has done that. Throughout the years, our premiums, they certainly haven't stayed flat, but they've stayed very steady. They have not been the huge ups and downs that we've seen in the markets, and they've really done a good job. And Guide One has been committed to the presbytery to keep the insurance affordable. As far as coverage goes, Guide One is one of the recommended carriers by the PCUSA National Church. And each church, again, is not automatic. Each church not only has the coverage provided automatically in the program, but always has options to increase it. The billing process is unique. And this really is unique because our agency does it. We actually create the invoices that your churches get. And some churches, pay in full up front. Some churches pay quarterly. Some churches pay semi-annually. Some churches pay monthly. We work very hard to make sure that however you can pay for the premium, you do. In all of the years, no church has never not paid their premium. In all of the years, no church has ever gotten a cancellation notice on this policy, has never gotten a late notice. Oh, I'm sorry. We've gotten late notices because sometimes we can't find the checks, but no late fees, no installment fees, nothing. Our agency does the whole billing process in-house, just as part of the program, part of what we do. We charge nothing for that. And we really believe that that's important to many of our churches, because there are times when the insurance bill is the last bill to get paid. And some understanding of that is important. And we can control that in our office. Consulting and education, back when we had Presbytery meetings in person, Dick and I were at an awful lot of them, if not most. Occasionally, somebody even let us speak, which was always a bad idea. But Robin, she thought it was a good idea. But we did try, and we had fun with that stuff. We are also always available to come to your church and have conversations with with whatever group that wants to come together. Insurance is never fun to talk about, but it is a critical part of the administration of our ministries. That's the summary of kind of the overview and the background. This year's policy itself, we have a total of $77,401,800 of building and contents insured. The policy, it has a $2,500 deductible. Again, coming back to mutual aid, one of the advantages of this program is that we took a little bit of a higher deductible, but then we self-insured so that each church only has a $1,000 deductible. So if your church has a claim, even though the policy is a $2,500 deductible, the Presbytery has a fund which we will reimburse. The $1,500 difference, and the church will only experience a $1,000 loss. It is a replacement cost policy, and it is special form coverage, which is as broad a property form as we can buy. This is a list of the participating churches. If you don't see your name here and you think it should be, then we need to talk, but this is almost all of the churches in the Presbytery. I think there's, Dick, do you know how many we're missing?
About 7.
Okay. There are enhancements to the policy itself, to the basic form, and some of them are important. And I need my glasses. So if you buy a new piece of property and you forget to call Dick or myself, there is automatic coverage for 6 months. There is $25,000 of coverage for the pastor's personal property or the personal property of others on the church property. We had a claim where somebody came in the back of the church and stole some coats and some other things from the back of the church during service. And so there is coverage for other people's properties as well as the pastors. Pastors have huge libraries and a lot of personal belongings that they keep at the church. So that is part of that. You get $50,000 coverage for valuable papers. Ordinance and law is probably one of the most critical extra coverages. And we're going to talk more about ordinance and law because this is a coverage that for many of our churches, we need to increase off of this base limit. But what ordinance and law does is when you have a fire or a loss to your building, in order to get zoning permits, a lot of times the zoning officers will come in and require you to put something, bring your building up to code. Many times it's an elevator, sometimes it's a sprinkler system, certainly sometimes it's a fire alarm system, a handicap accessibility. So all of those things play into getting the permits in order to be able to rebuild your church. So you had a loss. In order to get the permits to rebuild, the township or the borough is requiring you to make additional coverages. So there are 3 coverages here. The first is increased cost of construction. So this is if they require you to actually put up an elevator and you didn't used to have an elevator. We have $250,000 to add back things that you didn't used to have. We have $350,000 to tear down the undamaged portion of your building. What happens, and it's very rare that this happens with a church, but because they tend to be more historical and townships don't want them torn down. But sometimes a township will come in and say, okay, your building is 50% damaged. In order to rebuild the 50% that's damaged, you have to tear down the 50% of the building that is not damaged, because we want you to start from a clean slate and put a new building up. This $350,000 will tear down the old part of the building. And then the top number is $350,000 to build back what you just tore down because it wasn't damaged. So if you have $1 million building and it has $500,000 of damage, so it's half damaged, the insurance company is only obligated to put back the half that's damaged. So they're obligated for $500,000. If the township says, in order to get permits to rebuild, you have to take down the other half as well. You have $350,000 to take it down, and you have $350,000 to put it back up. In $1 million building, that is probably just shy of what you need. In a $5 million building, in a $20 million building, it is a lot short of what you need. And that's a conversation that we would like to have with each church after this meeting to talk about individually, would your church like to increase these limits? If you have, we will come back to this one. Appurtenant structures is if you have a building, a garage that isn't listed, you put a shed out back. We have coverage for that. Personal property off premise and in transit. A lot of churches have bells that they take and travel with. They're not, when they travel, they're no longer at the church, but insurance continues for them. This is then also a big coverage. It's $100,000 for indirect loss. And usually what that is either extra expense, the second line here, loss of tuitions because you can't hold the daycare or the school, and loss of rental income because you can no longer use it. So you have a fire, you need to rent another building across town to hold services. That's an extra expense. We would pay for that up to $100,000. You can't run your daycare. You lose that tuition revenue. We would reimburse you for the tuition revenue up to $100,000. Those are the coverages. If you're currently renting the parsonage and the parsonage burns, you no longer are getting that rental income while the building is being put back. That's coverage there. Outdoor signs are covered automatically. Backup of sewers and drains is included, which is important. Are there any others there you really want me to highlight, Dick?
No, that's pretty good.
Okay. The last is equipment breakdown. Equipment breakdown is changed so much. When I started, we used to call it boiler insurance because what would happen is a boiler valve would malfunction on the boiler. So that was a maintenance issue, a mechanical failure of a valve. And as a result of that mechanical failure, the boiler would actually explode and do damage all over the building. Insurance companies were denying that coverage because the reason for the loss was a maintenance issue in that a piece of equipment failed, which is not covered by insurance. So they came up with boiler insurance. Today it's expanded to really anything electronic, steam, water heating systems, all kinds of things. And it does bring mechanical failure in as a covered form of loss. It's a really important coverage, and it is automatic. Inland marine coverage. Inland marine is a very misleading term. It basically means it covers things that move. We have built in for everybody. We have $10,000 of pastor's personal property. You go to a conference, you take some type of a trip that involves work. We'll cover your stuff as you go. For some churches, we have scheduled fine arts. I once insured a church that actually had a Bible in their possession in their church that was Martin Luther's, and he had actually written in and all of that, and they had an appraised value on it, and they wanted to insure that Bible for its appraised value. Some churches have very fine art that is appraised, and then some churches have some organs that are unique that need to be covered specifically, or stained glass that is like Tiffany stained glass that they want to schedule a specific value for. And this is where we would do that, and we would do that on a church by church basis. Crime cover. I can't see everybody, so if you really want to ask a question, just yell. But if you want, you can hold it to the end. We will come back to these. We're at more than halfway done, I promise. Employee theft. This is a huge problem for churches. We have $5,000 of employee theft built in, which is not a lot of employee theft. What happens in a lot of times with churches is somebody steals $100 at a time for 20 years. And you don't even look until somebody catches something along the way. This is a coverage that you can absolutely increase. And in fact, the finance committee has worked with us and with Guide One this year so that this limit this year is $50,000. It is not $5,000 any longer. We would still recommend that for most of our churches, $50,000 is still pretty low. And we really would encourage everybody to consider it. And I give you a price as to what it costs later. But this is the coverage that's currently built into our plan. Liability is what everybody's always worried about. We have $1 million of liability for any one occurrence. That's any one event. We have $3 million of coverage in case more than one event happens during a policy period. So from April to April, anybody trips on your sidewalk, we have up to $1 million. From April to April, if 3 people trip on your sidewalk at 3 different times, and each one wins $1 million, then we're out of coverage. Products and completed operations is really food for churches. Somebody gets food poisoning of some sort. Personal injury, advertising, libel, slander, those types of things are there. Damage to premises rented. I had a large claim this year where somebody created a fire next door, a fire in a space that they rented, and did almost $3 million in damage until the building was done. It was careless cigarettes. Things like that can occur. It's not a common event for churches. $10,000 of medical expense. I call this Good Samaritan insurance. Somebody trips on your sidewalk, but they don't want to sue us, but they have $1,000 in medical bills that are not covered by their health insurance. We can come in and pay without admitting that we did anything wrong, but help cover some medical bills without being liable, without going to court or having those issues. And it's just kind of nice. For the churches that have daycare or school, just daycares, I guess, we have $10,000 of student accident medical included. On top of that, we have some specialties or some carve-outs. Sexual misconduct coverage is covered at $250,000 per occurrence and a $500,000 aggregate. And so I'll stop here and point out that in all of these coverages across the board, the limits that are shown here are coverage for the amount of damage that a court awards. So if we have a sexual misconduct allegation and we go to court, there are going to be attorney's fees. And those attorney's fees could run $500,000. At the end, if we are found liable because we did something wrong as a church, even though we spent $500,000 on attorneys, we still have $250,000 to pay out because we were found liable. And that's true on any one of these coverages. The attorney's fees are covered outside of these limits and have no limit. Directors and officers coverage. The leadership of the church make this. Do you want to say something, Dick?
No.
Okay.
No.
The leaders of the church make decisions on behalf of the church. And if somebody is unhappy with the leadership, and I know that never happens, but if somebody's unhappy and they actually sue the directors or officers directly, our policy will come in and protect the directors and officers. Hired and non-done auto. The church hires or rents a van to take people somewhere, or everybody piles into the pastor's car to go somewhere. That's non-done or hired. We would extend liability there. If the church owns a car, then we have to write a separate auto policy, and that's different. Employment practices is if an employee is bringing charges against the church for discriminating or harassment against them. Employee benefits is the church runs a health insurance program. They brought in a new pastor. They were supposed to be added to the health insurance program, but the administrator missed it, or somehow it got messed up. And 6 months later, that pastor has a heart attack and doesn't have any health insurance, even though they thought they did. This would come in and protect the church because we made an employee benefits mistake. Violent incident response is more and more common in churches as we watch the news, and this does give us some coverage there. And then legal expense reimbursement is a new coverage. It's a really nice coverage. There are times that a church will be sued for something that is outside of insurance, and it will help pick up some of those costs. Many churches have several churches have talked about and over the years have talked about or increased the limit of sexual misconduct coverage. That's the most common one that people get worried about. The other thing that many churches have done is they've said, look, $1 million of coverage for any one event is not enough. And so then they bought an individual umbrella to go over top of these coverages to give us an extra 1, 2, 3, up to $10 million of coverage for that church. Presbytery leadership decided that this is the minimum coverage that a church should have, all of our churches should have. And then if you, depending upon your program, let's say you have a daycare program, $1 million may not be enough. If you're one of the larger churches, $1 million is not enough. And we should look at changing these limits. These are a whole bunch of extensions within the liability section of the policy. One of the important ones is first that who is included as an insured. So all volunteer workers, donated labor, your members, your ministers, boards, trustees, teachers, any sub-organization that your church controls, your school nurse, acting in their scope. What this is designed to say is if there is somebody who is acting on behalf of your church, that they're authorized to do what they're doing what you asked them to do, that liability coverage will extend to what they did. Ministers' counseling insurance is specifically covered and does include both lay and volunteer counselors who are in training. Our liability coverage does go worldwide. Defense costs are outside of the limit. There is incidental host liquor liability. Incidental host liquor liability means you are not selling the alcohol, but it can be served. So weddings, all of those kinds, even communion. Burnings, product recall. The rest of those are pretty good. You will get a copy of all of this. So that's kind of the end of coverages. We'll go back and just very quickly highlight the coverages that we've changed. This year, the additional negotiated coverage that the finance wanted us to do was to increase employee theft from the $5,000 limit to $50,000. There are 3 churches that have already increased that to $100,000. The cost to increase it from $50,000 to $100,000 is $75 a year. For most of our churches, I would spend the $75. This is a good coverage, and this is a likely coverage. The only warning or caveat to this coverage that I put out there, there have been times when the church has found somebody who has embezzled money, and they've wanted to present an insurance claim to get reimbursed the money that they lost. And that coverage is very simple. The insurance company will pay you back, but the insurance company, in order to pay you back, does require that a police report is filed and that charges are filed against the person who did the crime. And I have had claims in our history, not with the presbytery, but in our history, where the church was unwilling to file claims, file a police report. And so then there's no coverage, no police report, no coverage. And that is a caveat to this. Additional coverages we discussed already is this building ordinance and law. If you have a large building, we $350,000 is not sufficient to replace the undamaged portion, and we should have a conversation about that. Data restoration is another coverage. There is $50,000 limit for data restoration. That is the information that is on the church's computers. For most of our churches, $50,000 is more than enough. You have some relatively simple records. For some of our churches, we have extensive databases, extensive libraries on our computers, extensive research that's been done that would be very costly to replace. And if your church has that type of situation, that can be increased. The cost is somewhere around $60 a year for every $50,000 you want to increase that coverage. That's the whole story. Questions?
Can we take that down so that we can see everybody? Because if you
Yes.
have a question, you'll have to raise your hand, physically raise your hand like this so that I can see you and call on you.
And for those of you on the phone, that's a really big trick. So let's see it.
Yeah, that's going to be tough. But there's a raised hand there on 1100. So I'm thinking that is a question there. No?
He's muted currently.
Right. You're muted if you do have a question. Okay. Maybe not. Maybe does anybody else have a question? Mark, you're muted.
Oh, because you said under presbytery insurance policy, you said same deductible amount and same coverage. Is that right, Phil?
Yes.
Of course, the amount of payment might be different depending on the size of values of a church, right?
The premium would be different depending on the size of the church. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Just, okay, if any individual church like my church, KCLV, choose to renew the April the 1st for the next year, what should we do? And if we just step off from the group insurance, what do I have to do that?
Okay, so to stay, your church is currently on our plan. So
Yeah.
in order to renew,
Mhm.
we'll be sending you an invoice.
Invoice, yeah.
We'll send you an invoice from our agency. We haven't done that yet. They're actually being made as we speak, but you'll get an invoice. But your renewal in our plan is automatic. You don't have to do anything to renew.
Automatic before we decide in session meeting to renew or not. When can we get the estimate?
Well, Dick was working on the premiums today. We could probably give it, we could tell it to you tomorrow, and we could probably email you an invoice even as soon as tomorrow if that is necessary for your session. Premiums as a whole this year, on average, premiums have gone up about 7%. And I appreciate, Pastor, you asking this question because there are two things I forgot to cover. One is premium. So every year the building values go up a little bit because the construction cost changes every year. So this year, the values for each of our church went up about 3.5%. So that will drive premium up 3.5%. Your buildings are insured for a little more, the premium is a little more. Beyond that, there was a premium change of another 3 to 4%. So overall, we are expecting an average of about a 5% rate change on all of our churches. I'm sorry, a 7% rate change on all of our churches. That does change a little bit depending upon the church and their exposure, how big they are, what their loss history is, those types of things. There is some change in that, but most of the churches are right around 7%. I don't know what the highest percentage was in terms of change, but I certainly can get your church's insurance information or anybody's if they want. Just email us because the mail has been really tricky. We actually mail out the invoice, but mail, I don't know if you've had good experience with mail, but I know that lots of things that I've mailed have not gotten there. We have a major insurance company, Erie Insurance, we represent, who has actually suspended late payments and cancellation notices because the mail system has been so bad. So if somebody wants that information, if you'll shoot us an email, Dick or myself, we can email you the information right away, but the billing itself will come out soon.
And,
So,
Phil and Dick, are you going to be in touch with the churches between now and renewal date?
We will be in touch at some levels. It may only be email. For us to get to each church by April 1st is probably a difficult task. But if there's somebody who really wants to hear from us and meet with us, then please contact us to let us know that. We'll handle those who have the bigger desire to be able to get together with you.
And Mark, wait, did you have another question?
Yeah, that's why just, you mean, Phil, I have to contact you to get a estimate and the detail you explained today, just some document to share together with a session member in meeting in this month, because we need to read, right?
Yes.
Well,
all you have to do, yeah, I mean, for you, because you've asked, we will send that to you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
And I am 99% sure we have your email already. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I have a plan just to have some session meeting before the end of this month, and we need to share together and just opinion, and then should be passed.
That'd be great.
Yeah? Thank you.
The second thing that I didn't mention that I just forgot, with the increase in coverages, let's take the monies and securities, for example. With the limit increasing to $50,000, the insurance company has asked us to make sure that our churches that are getting that increased limit are following good protocols. So do you have 2 signatures on checks? Does somebody reconcile the bank statements each month, and preferably not the person who's writing the checks? Is there some kind of report that's sent to a committee where that's all verified and overseen? So Dick or I will be contacting each of the churches really in the next couple of months, as soon as practical, as soon as we can get a hold of the people who need to have these conversations and try to gather that information. Same is true for like sexual misconduct. If you want higher limits of sexual misconduct, there's going to be a conversation about how, what is your protocol, particularly if you have a daycare. What is your protocol to make sure that the kids are safe in the church, that counseling that happens within the church happens in a safe way, those types of things. Dick and I will work with you to make sure that you get the coverage you want, but that you also are putting the safety measures in place so that hopefully there really is no need, and everybody is careful. How's that on a question and answer? More questions?
Anyone else have a question? Dwayne?
Yeah, you said that the invoices would be mailed out sometime this week?
It'd be not this week, it'd be out early next week.
Next week, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, because our session, if I remember correctly, they meet like the 3rd week of March. It's always the 3rd Sunday of March. So we should have that by then?
Yes.
God willing, yeah. I mean, certainly we will have done it long before then, but I can't promise the mail is there. If you get close and you have not yet received it, if you just reach out to Dick or myself, we'll gladly send it to you.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
You will have the information that was presented tonight and which will include the contact information for Phil and Dick. This has been recorded and the session on Tuesday was also recorded, so that's available for anybody who would want to review the recording of the presentation. Do we have any other questions, comments, concerns, anything?
Pastor Cho, will you be available tomorrow? Yes. Will you be available tomorrow? And so I can make sure I have your email address and kind of can review the coverages. That
You're gonna send me email, okay?
I will, but will you be available to speak by phone or?
Oh, yeah, but I need some, document data
Yeah,
to show that to elders, and they need us.
I understand that.
Yeah, understand?
Could I ask, actually, because
Yeah, sure, absolutely. What time is it? Just you could send me email or, my phone number. I will send you my, chatting to direct my phone number, okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else that anyone wants to say, wants to ask? Nelson, do you have any comments? You're muted.
You're muted, Nelson.
No, I don't have anything else. Phil's stressed the things that I wanted to bring up, and that was that we want everybody to check their coverages in some of these areas, because I know that we are low in some areas, but every church is different. So we really encourage you to look at some of the coverage limits.
As we considered things, we recognize that sometimes the base is good for maybe a smaller church, but maybe a larger church needs something more. But we were trying to accommodate everybody's needs. I think we can end this tonight. Thank you all for being here. I'm delighted that of the 22 churches that are on the insurance policy, 18 of them have been at one or the other of these Zoom meetings. So we've had good response from folks to learn about the insurance. And Phil and Dick are always available for you if you have any other questions. So thank you all for being here. And I guess we'll say good night.
Thank you all.
Good night.
We really do appreciate this opportunity, and we would really value the opportunity to speak with you guys individually about your churches. I cannot reiterate enough that there are coverages that some of your churches really should consider increasing in some ways. And besides that, we love to come out and say hello and have those personal conversations when we live in a post-COVID world.
All right.
Thank you, Peter and Janet. Have a good night.
Good night. Good night.
Good night, everyone. Thank you so very much.